Well, here it is, guys and gals. The ultimate showdown between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. With Clinton out with her book recently and Sanders pushing for Medicare for all, at roughly the same time, I've started to see more back and forth between the diehard supporters of these two titans of the Democratic Party. Would Bernie really have won? Was Clinton's loss his fault? Is Clinton the core of the party? Is Bernie its soul or spirit? Was Bernie wrong on guns? Was Clinton too cautious? Is all of this back and forth any damn use? No, not really. So folks, sorry to break it to you, but continuing to linger on the primary fights of 2016 is not going to get us anywhere. At best, it makes us feel good in the choices of who we supported in the primaries. At worst, it's a wedge that keeps us from working together, that can be exploited by, well, the other side. Yes, we can look back and observe what worked and what didn't. That's learning from our mistakes. We should be doing that. But we need to be careful to view the events of the previous year in that lens. You gotta look at it as a learning experience, not as an excuse for self-righteous refights. I mean, it's fun to feel self-righteous, but if that's all we're doing, we're failing ourselves and each other. One bit of learning we need to take away from the 2016 primaries that is often overlooked is the importance of understanding that our heroes are fallible. They can do some great things, move great causes forward, inspire us to greatness. But our heroes are only human, so they'll get trapped in ways of thinking or arguments or strategies that just don't work. They can focus too much on things that just don't matter in the minds of the people that most need to be swayed. Or they can fail to challenge the institutions that fail us. It's okay for our heroes to be fallible, as long as we are able to own up to that. I had a favorite in the primaries, and that candidate made me glad to be backing them. And at other times, they made me cringe. What made me more frustrated was the habit of blind support and obedience by some supporters of both candidates, to and only for their candidate. There will always be such folks, of course, but there was perhaps more of that going on than there really should have. No matter who won the primary, there was going to be folks that would refuse to vote for the other in the general election, without a lot of pushing from their preferred candidate, that is. And even then, it was sometimes not enough. But Dr. L, you might say, the other candidate was terrible in all these very nitpicky ways. Are you seriously saying that Clinton or Sanders, whichever you hate more, would have been worse than what we got? Seriously? Our country is being run by a petulant child who's robbing our country, as in taking money from the government and pocketing it through his constant golf outings. He is a thief. I could bore you with a few dozen other ways this is an absurd position, but I'll move on. Traitor Russia, corruption. But yes, moving on. But Dr. L, if we don't have this battle between the two for the soul of the Democratic Party, we'll never win in 2020. Assuming I buy the premise of what you're saying, we had this fight already. It ended at the convention. People of this party made their choice. It's time to move on. But I also don't buy the premise of this argument. The soul of the Democratic Party should not and cannot be a single person. For the left of the United States, there sure is a lot of need for a dear leader figure in the party. To have a single voice to amplify our own. To be our personal avatar. Our own personal Jesus. This is a dangerous way of acting. Dangerous way of thinking. Even when it works out in practice on occasion, it entrenches the idea that someone else is doing the work for us. But if you haven't noticed, and believe me, most folks haven't, the Democratic Party has very much failed to maintain any semblance of a state-level structure since 2010 in many parts of the country. One could blame the DNC for dropping the ball, but you know what? That wouldn't matter if more of us were out there doing this stuff too. Getting out and volunteering. It's easy to rail against the party elites for this or that or whatever, but we, the people of the Democratic Party, need to actually get involved. I know, people have day jobs, but some of us seem to waste a lot of time reading Twitter or blogging or whatever. When we could, I don't know, call up a local party and say, hey, I've got a couple hours to burn, and I want to do some good. Got anything going on? Sharing and expressing online is exactly the least you can do. So don't stop that, but you got to do more. And guess what? The more of us out there pushing for the change we want, we need, for a return to sanity, against the rise of fascism and white supremacy, and of course against the Orange Man and his party, the more able we'll be able to affect change as a party. Then no matter who we nominate next time, they'll be more able to do what they need to do, what we want them to do. One of the failings of the party rank and file happened in the 2010 midterm elections. Health care reform was finally the law of the land. The Democratic Party, many of its core voters, decided, well, maybe everything's good now. Don't need to get out there and actually do stuff. Don't need to volunteer or help campaign or vote. Everything is peachy with Obama in the White House. Nothing will ever go wrong. And then the Republicans turned out to vote, and the Democrats didn't. And the Republicans took over most of the states. And the Republicans took over drawing congressional districts in most of the states. Then, using this power, they did just that, and drew maps in most of the states that favored them, sometimes by ridiculously wide margins, so that they never have to worry about losing a seat in the Congress or the State House for the next 10 years, possibly much longer. Investing all ourselves, our very soul in one man, in this case President Obama, this feeling that it was okay, as he'd keep the victory rolling on until the end of time through some sort of magical powers or something, I don't know. The going back to sleep content that our hero would save the day without our help. That moment, we failed. Almost 30 million fewer people showed up on the Democratic side in 2010. A drop on the Republican side? About 8 million. That is criminal neglect from our own voters. And it handed over Congress to the other party for probably the rest of the decade. A lot of folks talk about what you would do in a crazy time of history, and then more recently, the twist is, well, guess those times are back. So what are you doing now to effect good change? You know what? You should always be standing up for what's right. You should always be active. You should always be doing the right thing. You should always be involved. You shouldn't take fascists marching in the street, killing people, to get us to act as responsible citizens. And that means we can't assume our heroes are going to save us. There should be no one person who represents the soul of the Democratic Party. Because if we're doing what we need to be doing, it doesn't matter who's at the top of the ticket. We shouldn't let candidates in a primary divide us simply because they have a difference of opinion. These wounds should never have become wounds in the first place. Don't fight for the soul of the party. Be it. And that means voting. Vote in the primary, vote in the general, vote for president, vote for senate, vote for Congress, vote for state house, vote for governor, for secretary of agriculture, for county supervisor, for city council, mayor, school board. Vote. Get out there. Vote. Every election, every year, no matter when they are. Yes, in many places the Republicans put barriers up so we can't vote. Figure out what red tape you need to cut. Register early. Verify your registration. Make sure it's correct. Don't fall for scams that claim that Republicans vote on Tuesday and Democrats on Wednesday. That's bullshit. Heck, report that crap to authorities and the news. Don't just be active, be unyielding in your activism and participation. That's how you become the soul of the Democratic Party. So yeah, it doesn't matter anymore who was the better candidate in the last election, and to a certain degree it shouldn't have. So next time, remember that. Remember that you are not your candidate. They will fail you, and you need to be able to admit their faults to yourself. And get out there and give them a Congress that they can work with. It's nice having someone who can block the stupid stuff that's going on right now, but it would be nice to actually do some good for a change too. And be prepared for when they fail you. It's easy to lash out, but that anger should not be directed at your allies. There are more dangerous opponents in the world of politics that really need our energy. And I'd rather be fighting alongside someone who chooses differently in a primary against the Orange Man and the turtle running the Senate than hurting them and letting these criminals continue to burn away our future. Before I end, I want to mention something about that posting and sharing online stuff. As I said, doing that is the least you could do. But we should do it. We should be doing that. But also, in the long term, think about that sort of thing in a more strategic fashion. The online mimetic war is real after all, And in the moment, we are kind of losing it. But part of that reason is that it's not exactly been a fair fight either. And by that, I mean they have a third-party player involved actively on the other side, running bots and pushing fake news. Some folks think Russia being involved ended on Election Day. Huh. I'll maybe talk about that in my next video. This is Dr. L, and this ends with me.